I'm coming to get you.
Every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome to Great Awakenings on globalfreedomtv.com. I'm Scott Bennett, your host, and tonight we're joined by a very special guest, a very close friend and a brother of mine that I consider a wonderful, honorable, intelligent man, Mr. Hamed Gashgavi. I had the great pleasure of meeting Hamed when I was at the 2018 New Horizons Conference, in which myself, Mike Maloof, Phil Giraldi, and a host of other Americans, Australians, Irishmen, Britons, Australians, and a variety of other people from all over the world went to Iran, went to Mashhad, went to Tehran, went to other places, and had a wonderful experience in dialogue, in conversation, in truth, in discussing things that are hidden from the American people, hidden from the vast majority of populations in the West, relating to 9/11, to Israel and its genocidal programs on Gaza against the Palestinians, so many different geopolitical issues. It was a wonderful conference, and one of the great men who helped put that together, and I think a great diplomat, statesman, and a man of peace who should be one of the candidates for the Nobel Peace Prize in the future, besides his stylish ways, is Hamed. So Hamed, it is very great to have you on Great Awakenings, and I know you have so many wonderful hallmarks of your character and your success. Of course, I think could be measured by the West's fear of you. They have tried to sanction you and Nader Talebzadeh. I think you're the youngest man who's ever been sanctioned, but yet the most polite, the most peaceful, and the most intelligent man that could ever be sanctioned. But I stand solidly with you in support, and I have only wonderful things to say about Iran and all of the people that I've ever met in all of my travels to Iran on various times. I think they are terribly misunderstood by the West, and I have only respect and love and admiration for them because of their solemn, holy family values, their humility before God, and their devotion to family, devotion to each other. It's a very rare thing, and it reminds me of the Scottish clans had very much the same fidelity. And I think the same could be said about the American Indians, and indeed any tribal people. And Iran has emerged in the last 50 years as the vanguard, the leader out of the colonial oppression from the British to the American, and they've only gone stronger. And I've seen so many wonderful things in that country that I think the future is extraordinarily bright for Iran, with the BRICS nations assembling and the world turning away from the colonial domination and legacy of war, of bloodshed, of oppression, all of that stuff that's gone on for the last 20 years, I think we're about to hit a major paradigm shift. And I think the beginning of all of this shifting, this changing, is happening right now in Gaza and Israel. But before we get to that, I want to give you the floor and let you introduce yourself to the audience and your view of Iran, America, the world, and where we're going. Go ahead, Hamid.
Thank you very much, dear Scott Bennett. It's an honor for me to be on your show. Thanks for having me. Actually, it was a great honor for all of us here in Iran having you on various TV programs at the time when Departed Nader was actually handling that very unique talk show on Iran's national television, which no one else can actually reproduce at the same level. So as the same, I mean, it was a great pleasure for us to have you on conferences, on peace conferences we had. And, you know, we have to be thankful of friends in U.S. Treasury Department, because when they made that decision, you know, just I have been called at the moment, coming back to maybe 5 years ago, I remember. So, and then he was a friend, and they told me, Hamid, congratulations. I said, what happened? He said, your name entered on the list of U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned entity and persons. I said, that's okay. So it shows what we have been doing is something correct. And so, you know, but by just actually making kind of aggrandizement on what we have been doing, Treasury Department actually made a kind of favor to us, to me, to you, to another. And they actually made us certain that the way we have been working on was the correct way. No another kind of direction. So we got the good direction. So for that, I'm thankful to them. And then, you know, at the time when I got the title as Iran's youngest sanctioned person by U.S. Treasury Department at the age of 29, I said, oh my gosh, and that's my first and unique and maybe last international title. So, I mean, yeah, we have been actually working together for years. I mean, you're correct. I mean, I came back to Iran in 2012. And so I had the experience of living abroad. And we actually begin to invite people like you and others who talk about various issues related to actually geopolitics, regional, international matters. And so we have been inviting, I mean, these, I mean, free thinkers, journalists, I mean, cultural critics, media commentators. And so I was certainly in touch with the people like you who had a kind of official background, have been working as officials in U.S. government. But it was at that conference in 2018 that we actually could have the agreement of Minister of Foreign Affairs in order to invite you. And so Dr. Phil Giraldi, former CIA officer, Dr. Michael Sprayman, former head of U.S. Bureau of Visa in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia and former diplomat. I mean, Peter Van Buren, who spent 24 years in Minister of Foreign Affairs, Van Buren, who wrote that book, How We Lost Iraq's Mind and Heart. So we had, at the same time, Michael Maloof, former senior security analyst at the Office of Secretary of Defense. And so we had that kind of maybe 5 people who have been working. And so like you, Dr. Scott Bennett, former psychological officer in the U.S. Army, ex-contractor of State Department, who worked as well with Ed Snowden at Booz Allen Hamilton, was a kind of very unique, actually, characteristic within the conference for other guests. So these people, it was actually the first time we could invite them. And you know what we have been doing? You actually, you have witnessed what we have been doing at various conferences, various universities. You went to universities, academic centers, and you have been giving lectures, QA sessions. People were questioning you about how the true image of U.S. is, because American officials and American government since 1953 coup against Mossadegh have done too much harm to Iranian people, that it's not really easy to understand. There's other Americans who actually don't want to actually blame everything in the Middle East on Iranian people anyhow. So, but the level of, I have to use the word atrocity, the level of that kind of intellectual savagery, which would like to to ban people from communicating each other. What we have been doing has nothing to do with with intelligence community, with security system at all. Everything was open, everything was on air, on media. And universities and academia and everything. So when we arrive at such level that U.S. governing system is afraid of actually some people, individuals being connected to each other, I have to say we arrive to some certain point which shows us that's the good direction.
Yes.
And so that's the kind of very brief, if I would like to summarize, background of what we have been doing, the conferences, all these pro-peace events and gatherings. Something which is important. I remember that article of Eric Wahlberg, the Canadian expert on geopolitics, who wrote an article coming back to 2015 entitled "Meetings of Mind in Tehran," saying that I knew Kevin Barrett, maybe I knew some others, but it was in Tehran that we meet each other. It was Islamic Republic that actually made a platform for us to meet each other physically. And so I'm happy to be with you, Scott, and people like you and others. Just adding something very important. I strongly believe, Nader was using a term, Israeli firsters. So coming back to U.S., I strongly believe every politician on global scale has to work for the interest of her own people. So when it comes to Europe and North America, we have people as well as other countries across the world who are actually dual nationals, who have both citizenship. And I don't see anything against that. Nothing bad in the sense, actually, in the sense of having two nationalities or more than that. But the issue is when I am an Iranian, for example. If I have another nationality, I don't know, for example, a European, African, Latin American country, and so that's fine. Until now, that's fine. But when I will prioritize the interest of the second nationality on my own nationality, and that's the case for all these dual American Israeli, European Israeli who have been working. Just look how far you in America went to defend American interests in Middle East. All these wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and these project for a new American century and neocons and so on. So, and spending that kind of huge money, unbelievable how much Americans have been spending. And if you remember, just if you just focus your mind, you will say, no, I don't think that's for the interest of American people, American citizens, American patriots, that we have been actually doing all these crazy stuff. So I think that's the time for American public opinion just to turn on another side and look for another approach. If you look at the big picture, and maybe as I'm living in Iran, maybe people, you made a very beautiful introduction about the Islamic Republic, made a kind of autonomy and independence for Iran after a revolution. So maybe I am actually in Iran, I cannot see that as well, but you actually watching that big picture. So once again, coming to the US, if you just, I'm talking right now to American audience, American actually viewer of your show, all the patriots, who have been fighting for America, who have actually been dedicated to defend American actually identity, American familial values, American cultural identity. So I believe actually that's time to look at U.S. foreign policy from another approach. Just take a distance and just look at it, and you will see that's horrible. That's a kind of disaster foreign policy. So let's begin the interview.
Yeah. Well, let me start off by saying when we returned from Iran in 2018 at the New Horizons conference, it was very interesting that I had thought and hoped Donald Trump would have adopted an entirely different trajectory and course when he became president, and I was horrified to see some of the things he was doing, especially starting out with obeying Zionist Jewish masters in canceling the JCPOA agreement that had been fashioned, that all of Europe was in agreement with. Trump instantly cancels it because of the Jewish influence, and he then proceeds to move the embassy to Jerusalem later and puts on sanctions. And then I was horrified when we returned that this person named Sigal Mandelker, who was a dual Israeli citizen,
under U.S. Treasury Department Secretary
Mnuchin, yeah, Steve Mnuchin, another Jewish dual Israeli citizen. It struck me, they turned the FBI onto many of the people that attended the New Horizons conference. Now, they never came to my house. I felt left out of that party, but they did go to other people's houses and said, you can't go back to Iran or else you might be arrested. And some of them were attorneys, and they said, well, what do you mean? Why? We're going by our own request, and we're speaking. But the American Nazi bully state was already in formation, and they were
just one point, Scott. We have to remember that these people, they put in position those who have been raised and born in Israel, some of them, and even if that's not the case, but psychologically, intellectually, they have been Zionistly educated. And it's very important to know at the decision-making centers within the United States, within, the ruling system, they actually put in position these people, and we have to take in consideration all that, all these details.
Well, continuing, the fact that the Israeli dual citizen like Sigal Mandelker and so many others have been raised in this mental environment to be draconian and fascist and tyrannical is alarming, especially to me and others, Mike Maloof, Phil Giraldi, Kevin Barrett, others who went, because that was never what America was supposed to be, especially to its own citizens. So these acts were a foreboding, a foreshadowing of what we're going through right now. And we've seen it recently with the FBI and law enforcement being pitted against Trump-supporting people, January 6 people.
And just a matter, Scott. You know why actually these people you made them very upset and actually angry, because the issue is you are giving another image of America.
Yes.
And these people that don't appreciate that, these people would like to have that kind of exclusive, actually, perspective of American society toward Iranian people. Coming back to Trump, we remember that kind of Steve Bannon, who used to be a very close advisor to Trump, who had kind of critical, vision toward Jewish people, and then I remember once he said, "I don't put my kid in a school in which Jewish kids are educated." So, and there actually was a great pressure actually on him in order to put Steve Bannon aside. So we have seen all these issues. Once again, if you remember, just last year on Truth Social, kind of social network, Trump actually tweeted something which was no American president has done more than me for it. I'm sorry. محمد رضا نمیفهمی من دارم مصاحبه ضبط میکنم، ببند درون. So yeah, coming back to that issue of Steve Bannon, And then Trump, so he kind of tweeted that no American president has done more than me for Israel, and that's time for American Jews to return before it should be too late. So it kind of maybe kind of mixture of seriousness and comedy. But I would like to say, at some specific point, even within the ruling system in states, there have been a kind of truly, I mean, real conflict between some decision makers in America and in Israel, and those, I mean, lobbies. So coming back to lobby, some people use the word lobby, some people use the word Israeli governance, because when we say lobby, that's a kind of very tiny group, interest group, I mean, lobbying for something. But when you see that kind of actually maneuver and power of Israel in Europe, particularly in Western Europe, in North America, you see there's not a kind of lobby, but a kind of governance. So, I mean, even Stephen Wolf and John Mearsheimer, when they wrote U.S. foreign policy and Israel lobby, they have been criticized by Professor Chomsky as well. But the word, I mean, Israel lobby, Zionist lobby, somehow for the first time within academia has been actually introduced, while coming back to the late 90s. Finally, even Justin Raimondo of Anti-War, I mean, both of them, they have been talking about the lobby. But coming back to that book of Stephen Walt and John Mearsheimer, they have been two academics, very high level, Chicago and Harvard University, and they have been saying not only that's harmful for U.S. national interest, but even for Israeli long-term interest, that kind of too much being dependent on U.S. power. So just you have been saying about that issue of dual citizenship and so on.
Well, it leads into so many confusing tangles and knots that the American people, and let me just say, part of my frustration, disagreement, and friction with a lot of what is happening in America stems from my coming and being born in a Scottish home, a Scottish culture, far more conservative, far more family oriented. And when I look at America, and I did my PhD in political theory, and I did I did all of the education, but one of my books that I did, which was my doctoral thesis, was on social science, statistics relating to the family, marriage, religion, and its correlation to healthy society. And essentially, you can boil it down to individuals who marry, who raise children within a mother and a father, male and female household, that attend a religious participation, that have grandparents and uncles and aunts and have a wholesome family, that do not participate in drugs or alcohol or pornography or any of these things, turn out to be very successful, flourishing members of society. And when you corrupt that and poison that with divorce, pornography, homosexuality, films and radio and TV and entertainment and things that fill the mind and make it impure, you're killing society. So when I look at America, there are so many pathologies and social decay problems. It causes the population to become stupid. It causes them to become lazy. It causes them to become idiots. It causes them to become addicted to sports. It's like a mob in ancient Rome Colosseum, bred in circuses. And I look and I think the other thing is the acceleration of stupidity in America is because you have two oceans on each side of you. You've never suffered a war. You've never suffered a revolution, really. It's in 1776 in America. You've never been invaded. You've never been really bombed or deprived. 9/11 was a false flag. And incidentally, I think that was another reason they were so paranoid when we got back from Iran, is because they knew that all the people that were there that came from America knew that 9/11 was a false flag, self-inflicted, psychological attack upon the American people to justify a Jewish-Israeli Mossad Netanyahu plan to carry America to war and conquer 7 countries in 5 years, including Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Iran, Saudi Arabia, ultimately. And of course, that was thwarted, but they were paranoid that was getting traction. But I never saw any impurity in Iran. I never saw any filth or dirt or garbage in Iran either. I've never encountered a hostile voice or an angry look. So my perception and my experience is when I share it with Americans, they're dumbfounded. They can't understand it because the propaganda has demonized Iran. And I wanted to focus that a little bit before we launch into Gaza, because so many things that are being said right now are Iran is responsible for this attack, Iran's proxies, Iran's Haqqani network, Iran's militias. They're invading America through the southern border. They are planning attacks and all sorts of other things. And I'll hand it to you, Hamid, to tell the American people what they should understand or know about all of this propaganda about Iran.
Just very recently after that, I mean, the Ukrainian war actually, according to many analysts, actually began in 2014, not in 2022.
That's right.
So very recently, I have seen a kind of very brief video clip. A documentary maker in American streets interviewing people, and so he had a map and asking people to just show where Russia is. So a map without names of the country. And maybe, so some people they actually were suggesting Russia is Canada, is that close to America? Why? Because all these media brainwashed machine and systems working 24/7, that for an American ordinary citizen, he can easily believe that Russia is that close to our borders that we need to intervene in Ukraine. So, and that kind of being far from the realities on the ground, but I still believe there is a real, actually, kind of a shift of maybe direction within the public opinion. Coming back to 2001, 2003, Iraq and Afghanistan invasion. So Afghanistan and Iraq invasion, vice versa. So, at that time, many Americans believed that after 9/11, that so-called war, very holy war on terror, was in favor of American interests and American people. But coming back to crisis in Syria, I remember in Iran, at the time of Obama administration, we heard in a period of week, some commentators and actually media experts have been saying today, tomorrow, Obama will actually Obama administration will intervene military in Syrian crisis, but it didn't happen. And one of the main reasons it didn't happen was all these anti-war movement and people like you, the pro-peace actually activities, who have been saying that after all these years of Afghanistan and Iraq war, they could convince. I'm not saying the entire of American public opinion, but I'm saying a kind of undeniable part of American public opinion have been convinced that new war, new actual invasion is not in the interest of American people, while we have a lot of economic crisis within the states. So, I think, once again, coming back to that question, which actually will form the next part of our conversation about Gaza. Look how many people, in London, and in France, in Netherlands, in Germany, in Italy. I have many American European friends sending me images, and unbelievable, while the whole media is supporting something else. So I believe that issue of public opinion with the force of the actually media can somehow bring a kind of change. But what you said was very important, because on that side, the issue of family is very important. Traditional, actually, familial values are very important. The first, actually, nuclear, actually, side and dimension of a society is the family. And if a kind of civilization is attacked by that very essential, very unique, very initial, actually, nuclear dimension, they can easily destroy the whole society. So I have to say that's something which is very important. I mean, sexual revolution that happened. I mean, Dr. E. Michael Jones had a very unique book, Sexual Revolution and Political Control. So what happened in US in 50 and 60, in late in Europe in 70s, and so and it has been promoted actually in other European and then Eastern European countries, and in Latin America, Africa, and Iran. We have actually seen some kind of effect of that. So I have to say this is very important. In a kind of tsunami, in a kind of I mean, a huge, actually, movement. So just take an example of tsunami. You should just attach yourself to a kind of wall, to kind of rock, in order just to keep and preserve yourself. And I think that wall is the family. Exactly. That wall is the familial, traditional, cultural values, in order to preserve the whole humanity. Because, Scott, very frankly speaking, I believe these people are against the whole human race.
Yes.
So we are not talking about Iranian people. They're not talking about American people, European people. The whole humankind actually is at risk of these people.
Yes.
And so I believe that's a very actually important duty, because in European and American atmosphere, we talk about we have the right of doing that. We have the right of doing this. So coming back to France, liberté d'expression, I mean, freedom of expression. So Charlie Hebdo has the right of insulting the holy prophet of Muslims in order to sell more and more, I mean, million more magazines, so copies. So, but the issue is we have rights, we have responsibility.
Yes.
So for each single right, we have a responsibility. That's correct that I have the right of freedom of expression, but I have the responsibility of not playing with the sensibility of others living in the same society that I do. And I believe something which has been lost for years and years and maybe centuries in Western Hemisphere is that they have been talking too much about the rights, individualism, I mean, humanism and hedonism and so on. But we have not talking about the second side, which is too important, responsibility. Once again, coming back to politicians, we have indeed, I mean, people vote for politicians. So politicians, once they are elected, I mean, particularly within Western Hemisphere, they see no kind of responsibility. And they will say, I have the right of doing that and of doing this. So where is the responsibility? And I believe strongly that right and responsibility, if they are not mixed together, if they have not been actually paid attention together, they cannot bring a good society. And without a good society, just coming back to that movie of Oliver Stone, Natural Born Killer, when I watched that movie, I messaged Nada on WhatsApp and I said, such a crazy society. Yes. I mean, the work society, SOCIETY, can be associated to a kind of collection of people living together, having a kind of same values and norms and so on. But when you see that kind of serial killers being promoted by the media, when media doing interviews, I have seen some of the interviews of these crazy people, and then even on YouTube available. And I was asking the question, why the media, why the system, why the ruling actually structure is promoting that? And so, I mean, that's a kind of, I mean, sickness within the society, but it's very important that who is ruling which society. We cannot let the whole human race be in a direction which actually will somehow end as a kind of destruction of the whole humanity.
Yes. Well, it's a form of worshiping death when they promote all of the destruction, death, madness, natural born killers, you know, pornography, all of the perversion, the degeneration, the decay of man. It's death, and it is devil worship. It's part of diabolical devil Satan activity at its heart. So there's great division. There's a great awakening happening in America, and I think all over the world. And to kind of summarize it before we go into Gaza, what we've seen since 2001 and the fake false flag attacks of 9/11
And
has
just remember that, Scott, because people, even in Iran, they talk about that conspiracy theory. Okay, let's imagine. I mean, I recently actually I have received a quote from an American actual thinker saying, William Bloom, if I remember, William Bloom, who used to work in CIA and just passed away just maybe 3-4 years ago, he said, the worst thing that you can imagine as conspiracy, government is doing worse than that.
Yes.
Okay, so, but for your audience, I mean, be careful. Every people, I mean, talking about 9/11, 9/11 truth seeker, 9/11 truther, and so on. Just, you should know and you should be aware that putting aside all these stuff of, you know, conspiracy theory that you have in your mind, okay, because I know these words, very key words, as kind of weapon. They have weaponizing the mind of American people by that kind of, you know, the first thing you start to talk about, you know, 9/11 become a kind of religion, new religion that we cannot criticize in the US. And then we talk about it. So we are Holocaust denier. We didn't talk about Holocaust. I talked about 9/11. And then you are a Nazi, you are so on, and conspiracy theory. Okay, so if you imagine that, there is architects and engineers for 9/11, more than 2,000, maybe 200 American architects and engineers. I mean, physician like Professor Stephen Jones. I mean, chemists. I mean, scientists and academic who have been proving that scientifically and physically that's not possible that 9/11 happened in the same way US actually government narrated. So that's the one message I would like to convey to your audience, and I'm looking in their eyes, and I would like them to be honest with themselves. I would like them to just take a moment to think, because as you have been talking, Scott, all these mainstream media and entertainment and Hollywood and Bollywood and Tollywood, they don't let the people time to even think about what they are in need or not. I mean, that's a kind of very huge consumerism world we are living in. And so I would like your audience actually to take, I mean, 30 minutes, 1 hour to think about the event and then verify some very simple facts. So, and then check if physically it could be happen or not. So, I mean, whatsoever people saying, myself, you know, most of what I have learned and achieved in my life was in the communication with the people who don't actually think like me, who are not in the same I am thinking, but I learned from them. So I ask you to open your eyes and ears and just verify. I'm not saying, I don't want to convert you to 9/11 actually truth seekers, a community, but I am saying if that's something, you know, that's something that millions of lives of American soldier, actually American patriot, American soldier who went to Iraq and Afghanistan, actually all those who, when they came back, they got the PTSD and they got all these psychological diseases. And so just remember, you know, and when they come back to home, as president, American president saying, bring back home, you see they got a kind of confusion, philosophical crisis, identity crisis, and they can't sleep during the night. They dream about it. They actually the kind of things and they question themselves why I was killing that much people, innocent people in Afghanistan, in Iraq. So I mean, you have to be honest with yourself and think about it. And if one day a country will attack America, I want the real American to defend America. And real American to defend American soil and American land should be those who have been investigating on issues related to their current contemporary history. We're not talking about issues which happened coming back to 30 years ago, 40 years ago. We're talking about something which has not more than 20 years. And while even nowadays, when we talk and start talking about the minimum thing about that event on which is based that kind of US exceptionalism and US pro-war policies and very huge, I mean, savage policies toward East and South, global South. So you have a responsibility as an American citizen to think about it.
Yeah, you do. You certainly do. And to be one with the truth, to seek the truth and to embrace the truth, there is a liberation, there is a healthiness, there is a peace of mind and peace of soul that comes that you experience when you acknowledge the truth. And people who don't live in fear and lies and death. And that's where we see the maniacy of the American political and many in the intelligence and the military sectors, because they're still in the lie. Maniacy, death, madness, destruction, violence. That's the great separation that's happened. And what we've seen since 2001, and then flash forward to 2014, when the Americans overthrew Yanukovych and we started this war with Russia, and Russia, of course, stepped in to stop the biochemical labs and all of the other preparations that were being done. That was the first war, and Russia has been winning that ever since, as we knew they would. But the West has still maintained this violence and this theft of the American taxpayer dollars. And now we've got Israel. We've got Israel, which has been bombing into oblivion Hamas, the Palestinians. And the whole Palestinian story really needs, people in America don't understand it. They don't understand that Palestine is a walled off, a concentration camp, that food can't get in, ships can't get in, ships can't go fishing, people can't leave, people can't come, either by the sea or land. Israel is slowly strangling Gaza, and the Palestinians have been turned away and neglected by the world and ignored by the world. And I have a sympathy for them striking back as free people do. The American people struck back against the British, and they were called terrorists in 1776, the Sons of Liberty. The Scottish were called terrorists because they rebelled against the English. The Irish were called terrorists because they struck back against the English. Palestinians have done the same thing, and I can understand their degree of rage because of what they've endured. And now we see Israel stepping in and engaging in genocide. But I personally think this is going to destroy Israel. Israel has united the Muslim world. Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. Even though there are differences, I think, and I'm coming in from a Christian Western point of view, even though there are differences, they see Indonesia as well. They all seem to be converging on this. You are slaughtering. You're not fighting. You're slaughtering women and children in Palestine. You're doing it intentionally, maliciously, devilishly. And the Muslim world is uniting. And I think they're about to act with either Turkey sending an armada of human aid, whether it's other Hezbollah or other forces stepping in with Russia's permission and China's permission, not that they need it, but Russia and China are going to support the Muslim nations and African nations who step in. And they're doing exactly what I predicted. They're cutting off diplomatic ties. They're kicking out their ambassadors from Israel. And they need to stop every shipment of food, oil, of any commodity to Israel. Israel needs to be completely besieged because of its diabolical, murderous behavior. That's in my opinion. And I think Israel has completely stepped into a trap of its own making. And I think America, if it's foolish enough, the Biden administration is foolish enough to try and trigger a war, they'll have every ship in the Mediterranean sunk, And no one in America will show up to be drafted into the military. No one will go. It'll cause a civil war in this country. But Hamed, I want to hand it back to you to educate people about what is really going on between Hamas and Palestine, the Palestinian people in Gaza and Israel and the Muslim world, how they're viewing it. Go ahead.
You know, if Israel, will survive in coming 3-4 years, and if we still have some honest Israeli people within decision-making centers, Bibi Netanyahu has to be accused and condemned of what he have done to actually put on risk the actual lives of millions of Israeli citizens. Just
War
saying
crimes.
that to be clear. Exactly. And once again, I'm not talking about the Gaza people and Palestinian people.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Bibi Netanyahu, who has done lots of harm to Israeli people. Many people talking about the possibility of Bibi Netanyahu being actually arrested in coming months if Israel will survive, and being condemned of what he has been doing without any kind of regulations.
I think that will happen because this is going to blow back. Israel is going to have to retreat because I think every Muslim nation is going to send millions of people in there to go on a slow human relief jihad, whatever you want to call it. But I think they're going to be surrounded on all sides, and they're going to be contained and squeezed in by Turkey, by Hezbollah, by others, even Russia. And their only hope for survival is to remove Netanyahu, charge him with war crimes, imprison him or execute him, and declare we're having an entire different shift in Israeli political existence. Scott Ritter has said that too. Political Zionism is dead. Doug McGregor, Colonel Doug McGregor, who I think would be a great president, said the same thing. Zionism is dead. Israel has lost this. So the smartest men in America are saying Israel has lost this. Ukraine has lost this. Isn't it funny how Zelensky is a Jew, a Khazarian Ashkenazi Jew, and these Jews in Israel, these Ashkenazi Zionists, I'm not saying all Jews are bad. We've got great Jews in Iran. I saw them there. They have parliaments. We have great Jews in America. David Weiss. But Zionism is a cancer, and I think it's going to be shrunk and contained. Anyway, I just wanted to agree with you that I think Netanyahu, the only hope is if they remove him and imprison him.
Yeah, I think that's the only possibility for Israel to survive. But I have seen, on Democracy Now! of Amy Goodman, I have seen hundreds of Jewish people in Capitol, in Congress, who have been wearing the T-shirt on which not on our name, and not for other people what happened for us. So, and I have emailed one of them, and she was very nice man, very old Jewish kind of grandmother, a kind of academic as well. And I said the whole world is proud of Jewish people like you. And once again, coming back to Iran, as you said, we have Jewish community in Iran. If they have their community, they have their schools, they have their actually gatherings, so they have their own representative in the parliament. And very ironically, Jewish people in Iran living in much more security than Jewish people in Israel. So, and they have been living in Iran for thousands of years, once again, since the appearance of Jewish communities across the Middle East. But something which you said, which is very important, we have seen since the beginning of, we all know, if we are going to be honest with ourselves, that Vladimir Putin has done his best in order to prevent that war since 2014, and all these, Russians have been killed in Ukraine and so on. But isn't it surprising that the same people who defended Ukraine are right now defending Israel? And coming back to what happened, between Israel, Ukraine, and Russia at the time of, Ukrainian crisis, and the closing of the Israeli Jewish actually agency in Moscow. Why? Because at the same time they had a kind of dispute. I mean, the Russian and Israelis about the position, because Israel was on the side of Westerners on Ukrainian crisis, and then we have even actually seen the images of a kind of physical conflict between the Ukrainian actually original Ukrainian Jewish people in Israel and Russian actually original Russian Jewish people in Israel. So, but the issue is, I wanted actually to make that comparison in order to make it clear. I mean, all these billions and billions of US tax money going to Ukraine, and you know what? They have been selling. I mean, some report right now saying some of the weapon which has been used by Hamas to attack Israel are those weapons has been actually sent to Ukraine. But the same thing that happened in Libya after killing of Colonel Gaddafi, it actually turned Libya to a kind of a black market of slave, of organ traffic, of arms. The same thing with Ukraine. Why? Because, I mean, all these stuff around entourage of Zelensky, very corrupt, I mean, people and corrupt entourage, and they have been actually selling and selling all these weapons on various, I mean, multiplying, I don't know how much on dollars, and so in black market. I am not saying if you are going to use that in favor of Western and American interests, I'm going to sell you that. No, that's not like that. So the issue is coming back to that very unique recent interview of Norman Finkelstein.
Yes.
On concentration camp, on the definition of concentration camp that I have mentioned. You said about it.
Yeah, so, I watched it. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, the George Galloway, very I mean, unique TV talk show. I mean, he was. I really encourage people viewing our interview to check that interview of Norman Finkelstein and his definition. So Norman Finkelstein, we invited him in Iran, coming back to maybe 7-8 years ago. He's the one who lost his both parent, actually mother and father, in Auschwitz, and who wrote the book Holocaust Industry, and he's called by Israeli as a self-hater Jewish person. So just look at the man. Look at the man. So he's a kind of secular Jewish person, academic. I once again remember that book of Professor Chomsky entitled Understanding Power, in which he has a chapter entitled The Fate of an Honest Intellectual.
Yes.
In which he actually explained the case of Finkelstein, saying Finkelstein actually found something interesting about the book from the time immemorial of John Peters, and he emailed a dozen of professors, including me, meaning Chomsky. So Chomsky actually wrote in that chapter of Understanding Power, I told him that's an interesting topic, but I warned him, if you follow this, you are going to get in trouble, because you are going to show American intellectual community as a gang of fraud, and they are not going to like it, and they will destroy you. And that's what happened to Norman Finkelstein. I mean, he had a tenure, just they fired him from the academia, and they forced him to say, no, sorry, what I have done is wrong, but he didn't. He is a man of courage. So I want the people to know the meaning of concentration camp. That's a word, that's an expression that we cannot associate to any kind of actually geographical, physical location across the globe. But once again, I remember Ray McGovern talking with a kind of 200, 300 students, and he asked the question, how many of you have never heard about USS Liberty? And the same question I ask your viewer. I mean, go on Google and search about USS Liberty. And unbelievable if you still think Israeli or those American making America a kind of platform for Israeli evil interests in the Middle East are doing something good for American interests. Those who have been actually trying to destroy the Navy of USS Liberty and all these people. I mean, Philip Tourney, who wrote the book What I Saw That Day, a very unique book. And so I want people just to, the issue is, Scott, history is repeating itself, and we
Yes.
have a short memory, and we don't actually, people talking about the possibility of another false flag within that Israeli and Gaza war in order to actually call the whole Western and American and saying another Holocaust is going to happen. But coming back once again to that, what happened in Gaza and Israel. And that speech of Said Hassan Nasrallah, the General Secretary of Hezbollah, you know, first of all, we have to know that, so it was said by Iranian Supreme Leader and Hassan Nasrallah, General Secretary of Hezbollah, and it has been confirmed by U.S. intelligence community, according to New York Times, that Iranian leaders have been surprised of that 7th October attack. While once again, so we have Hamas and we have Islamic Jihad in actually a Palestinian resistance movements. And so coming back to 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, they actually happened. It happened actually some kind of conflict between Israeli and Islamic Jihad, and some people question Hamas why you are not intervening at the time, and Hamas didn't actually get any response why they are not somehow doing something in defense of Islamic Jihad. But now we know that actually even within Hamas, the political bureau, Ismail Haniyeh, at the time of 7th October, if I remember correctly, he was in Turkey. And even, I mean, according to various sources, the political bureau of Hamas was not aware of that operation. Only the operational division was aware, and we got some information that people in tunnels for 2 years have been disconnected to any kind of smartphone and laptop and internet and technology, and they have been training themselves. And so everything was very calm, everything, I mean, even in the West Bank, and that's why Israel got shocked. And even in the morning, they didn't actually wake up Bibi Netanyahu because they couldn't believe still there's something which is going on the ground. So we know that Gaza is a kind of prison à ciel ouvert, as saying the French expert. It's a kind of prison with an open air. So, and that's a very unique actual situation across the globe geopolitically. And then we have seen a lot of pressure on these people. So the question I would like to raise for your audience, why all this pressure? Coming back to 2005, at the time I was in Tunisia. So we had in Palestine, PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization. At some certain point, 2004, 2005, Palestinian people have seen these people, even at the time of Arafat and after that Abu Mazen, they have been stealing monies from European Union and America. And the same thing that happened to Zelensky in Ukraine, all this corrupt entourage happened to PLO. And that's the reason they have voted for Hamas. So, I mean, what is Hamas? I mean, where Hamas came from? Just take a step back and look at a very contemporary history. Palestinian people have voted for a political party named Hamas. Why? Because they have seen Hamas was doing a social reform, doing great job in order to actually welfare of Palestinian people. So more than maybe 70, more than 50, 55%, according to what I remember, of the parliamentarian seats actually have been actually by the people, they have voted for Hamas, and it was a great victory. Since, I mean, right now, what the audience is watching in 2023, that's not what is going on the ground if we come back on 2005. Since that, in these 17 years, that's a kind of collective punishment on Palestinian people. Why you have voted for Hamas? And I remember, and I remind your audience that more than 500 people from European Union, from North America, came in 2005 in order to prove that elections are fair elections. So That's something that happened on the ground, and we should recognize that. But the
Well,
reality
remember,
is,
let me interject there. One thing that they are constantly saying to Americans in the West is this: Hamas has as its mission to wipe Israel off the map, to kill every Jew in Jerusalem or Israel. Hamas is dedicated to exterminating the Jews. That's their propaganda. That's what they're saying about Hamas, that it's got this mission of extermination. And I think that is a lie and propaganda, but how can you explain that? What is behind that, and what is the truth behind Hamas's mission? Does it have a component of that, or how do you explain that to help Americans understand? Because that's the brainwashing too. Hamas is dedicated to the death of Israel, so we have to, exterminate Hamas, is what they're saying.
Yeah, once again, that's the problem that I have with some Iranian friends. Some of those who are too much in favor of Islamic Republic, I am in favor of Islamic Republic as well. And some of those who are too much against Islamic Republic, they cannot understand the realities on the ground of Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I'm telling them, just put aside Islamic Republic and Iran and supreme leader, and just forget about them. Imagine there is no geographical location in Middle East named Iran. Can you imagine if you have the minimum understanding of historic, cultural, sociological background of that conflict between Jews and Arabs and all these? So once again, I remember Jews and Arabs and Muslims have been living, even Christians, in Palestine for thousands of years without any problem.
Yes.
But the issue is when the idea of Zionism actually happened, and then they went there and they start to. I am just imagine I'm a person who confirmed 110% that Holocaust happened. Okay, so the question is why Palestinians should pay the price? Okay, it happened in Auschwitz in Germany. Why you don't actually take a part of German territory and give it to these Jewish people who have been, victimized and so on? So, but the issue is coming back to that political question. So we have, Jewish people between themselves. So we have Ashkenazi, we have Sephardi, but we have, Semites. So actually, coming back to anti-Semite, a wrong word. So many Semites are Arabs. Many people in Yemen are Semites. Many of those Israeli, who have been brought from Europe and are Ashkenazi and not Semite in Israel. So, but all these conflict within the Jewish communities, and then they have their own conflict with Arab and Palestinian, and they brought some people from Black Africa, from Ethiopia, and they gave them the Israeli nationality, and they are called a kind of citizen, fourth degree citizen in Israel. So if there is, if I agree, if tomorrow you tell me, Hamid, in Israel, there is a ruling party, there is a governing system in which a Jewish people, a Christian, an Arab, Muslim, an African, Black African, if all these 5 categories in that imaginary Israel have the same rights, I will say, long live with Israel, and Israel should remain. So, but coming back to the issue of political, ideology of Hamas. So the issue is that if you take a look sociologically to historiography of liberation movement in Africa and Latin America, you see that even if the name of an organization, liberation movement, actually changed, or even if the organization disappeared, by the idea did it disappear. The idea of liberating, of making a country free of colonization. And I should say, remember something very well. Israel is the last step of Western post-colonialism atmosphere in Middle East, because before we had the French and British and American colonization.
Yes.
But the issue is coming back to Hamas, and they have that idea of liberation. Said Hassan Nasrallah in his speech said, so everyone was waiting for Said Hassan Nasrallah to actually declare a war on Israel, but it didn't happen in that way. It happened another way, and I tell you why. First of all, at the time when coming back to 1985 and 2000 and 2006, during the summer of 2006, when that Israeli very huge, technological army has been defeated by Hezbollah, and they couldn't believe that. So at the time, Hezbollah and some very, few other organizations doing and movement doing resistance in Middle East. But nowadays in Yemen, we have Ansarullah, the Houthi, and then we have in Iraq, Kataib Hezbollah, and we have Hashd al-Sha'bi in Iraq, and we have, if I remember correctly, Jaysh al-Watani in Syria, and even in Syria we have Zainabiyun and Fatimiyun. Just for those who don't know, Zainabiyun and Fatimiyun are those people who came from Afghanistan, who came from Pakistan under the supervision of Iranian military, who fought in Syria against ISIS. And ISIS, to be honest, have been defeated by all these people, including Kataib Hezbollah and Lebanon's Hezbollah, the Iraqi resistance group, and Zainabiyun and Fatimiyun, who came from Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iranians, and not by U.S. Army. So just be aware of that, because there is a lot of brainwash issues on that matter in political and media atmosphere. But the issue is, what Said Hassan Nasrallah said was something which is very important. He said on the day of 8th of October, we got informed after the 7th October, and statistically he had been giving some numbers from the Israeli internal sources, that a very important part of the concentration, intellectual concentration of Israeli army has been somehow deviated from Gaza and went to northern border with Lebanon. And he said nowadays the Yemeni and Iraqi and Syrians and Lebanese, they have all hold duty, and even other Arab countries in which there is no kind of formal resistance group, they have all duty to defend the Gazan people. But coming back to that issue of, Hamas would like to throw, Jewish people in the sea. That quotation actually belonged to one of the official Bibi Netanyahu cabinet, coming back to maybe 5 months ago, and he says something in the same manner. And nowadays we are watching in front of the whole world eyes, who is the one who would like to throw others in the sea and in the ocean. But the issue is a political issue. So coming back to South African apartheid, when we have been saying we are against South African apartheid, it doesn't mean we would like to physically destroy South Africa, but that's the nature of regime. Once again, for those who are pro music, I actually asked them to watch the last video clip of Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, and he was talking about the possibility of all Palestinians to return, and Palestinians who have been forced and obliged to leave the land, to return to Palestinian occupied territories, including Jewish and Muslims and Christians. All those have been actually felt to Europe, and they choose the nature of their governing system, and by national referendum. And I strongly believe that within, because we Scott, that's not a war. That's not a war. A war happens between two armies. Right. And then when I look at the Palestinian people and Gaza people, and when I look at the Israeli and even the normal citizen and settlers, they are armed. We have hundreds of video clips. They are armed and they are attacking by bullet the Palestinian people living in the same area that They are, and these normal, ordinary, armed Israeli citizens very peacefully are supported by IDF and the army, and so it's not fair, Scott. The issue is being fair, and that's not fair. And so I think I mean, and the history, if another argumentation is Jewish people saying we lived, Palestine. Actually, we lived in Palestine coming back to 2 or 3 thousand years ago. Okay, imagine that's correct. Imagine that's correct. So we had an empire in Iran, and so the Chinese had an empire, Japanese had an empire, and take an example of Iranian Empire, Persian Empire. If you just Google Persian Empire, so you see many countries nowadays located in Middle East have been part of Persian Empire. So if I just say, okay, coming back to the 500 years ago, coming back to 7 centuries ago, so Tajikistan was a part of Iran, which is right now a free, independent country recognized by every kind of international institution. So if we accept these Zionist claim that the land belonged to us, so there is no other rule to be, and no other actual law to be respected by the whole humanity. And so, every country can invade another country and say, I was there, I was here, just coming back to 300 years ago.
That's
so
right.
I think that's something which is important. We have to take in consideration all these issues. And I think the only problem, the only solution actually for that crisis within the Middle East is that we have to understand the realities on the ground. We should not let our mind 24/7 being bombarded by the media. We should take a time. We should have a kind of a tranquil actually atmosphere to think about it, and to put yourself 1 second, at the side of a Palestinian and look at the whole world from their perspective, and you may understand what is going on is a kind of not only crime but war crime, a crime against the whole humanity, a kind of ethnic cleansing. And every single person in the whole world, whatsoever religion you have, Christian, Buddhist, Muslims, atheism, no religion. I know people. I know people who are gay and lesbian, but they are saying that's wrong. What is happening? What is going on there?
Sure.
That's, I think, the minimum level of morality. And once again, if you just understand how that hypocrisy on Western media, coming back to Ukrainian crisis when it happened, very clearly CNN and BBC reporters have been saying these are not Syrian and Afghan refugees. These are European white Ukrainians with blue and green eyes. And if you look at how beautiful these kids in Gaza are right now, and some of them, they are truly beautiful, and how they are killed and massacred by not only Israel, but by the media as well. The media has a huge role in that whole massacre of Gaza people. And coming back to all these, issues which began on October 7th, babies have been beheaded, women have been raped. Okay, even Joe Biden said that in the press conference, and then White House press section said there is no reference, there is no documentation. And then why the whole world for 2, 3, 5, 4 days have been actually brainwashed by these babies beheaded and women being raped, and it was based on one single report of a journalist. He said, I heard, I have been told that in some meters we can find babies being beheaded and women being raped, and then the tweets of CNN and other mainstream actually newspaper and websites actually came out that there is no footage, there is no video, there is no image, no nothing. But that's the kind of war media. That's the kind of psychological warfare that
Yes.
you, Scott,
Yeah.
are an expert on that.
Yeah. No, you're right. I agree with you 100%. It's terrible. I want to put to you a possible solution. Now, no one else has talked about this. No one else in American politics or even international politics. I've talked about it a few times on RT and Press TV, but no one else has talked about this. And I want to put it to you because I think you're one of the few people that can really think about this and extrapolate it and put this into a diplomatic solution, scenario. And I think Iran would be a key country to develop this and to deliver this. So you're the key man. And here's the idea. Right now, you're in a kinetic conflict. You have Israel and Hamas, Israel for the most part, bombing and killing and genociding, and they're not going to stop. And they believe, the Israelis believe they are going to destroy Gaza one block at a time. Right now, they've focused on northern Gaza. They're going to annihilate it. And then they're going to proceed to continue the annihilation as far as they possibly can. Their agenda is to kill everyone in the Gaza Strip. So it's a kinetic war issue. Now the question becomes, is Turkey and Iran and Hezbollah and Yemen and other countries going to send military weapons and troops to stop that? I believe yes. So there's the kinetic fight. But I want to shift and look at something else. Besides the kinetics, besides bombs and bullets and airplanes and all of that, the only solution seems to be a united front of various nations coming together in one group, in one flag, in one confederacy, if you will, one unified collection that make a joint position, a joint statement, a joint movement. So it can't come from one country, but this has to come from all these different countries coming together to form a unit to then take and make an economic and political advancement against Israel. And I'd say against Israel by doing something positive in Gaza. So here's what I envision. The group of nations is not the United Nations. It's not the UN. They've lost all moral accountability. They're slaves and prostitutes to America and Israel. They're nothing. The new unit, the new nations that are collecting are the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Saudi Arabia. I don't think Turkey is part of BRICS yet, but if it's not, that's an opportunity. But here's what could happen. Since all of these nations, the BRICS nations, are about economic unity, they're about business, they're about the Belt and Road, they're about floating the tide higher so all ships can prosper. They're not about war. They're not about colonialism. They're not about theft of resources. They're about a collective farmer's market, if you will, or bazaar. I loved it when I was in Iran, going to the bazaars where you had merchants and different items and different products being sold in an area that's 1,000 years old. So the bazaar model, where you have different economic items to sell, and the different countries of BRICS, what could happen theoretically, and I want you to think about this and see what you think about this. Maybe I'm off of it, but I think I'm right on something. If Iran, for example, said to Russia, China, India, South Africa, the other BRICS nations, let us invite Turkey into BRICS, because Turkey has wanted to be part of the United Nations for a long, part of the European Union for a long time, right? Turkey's wanted to be, and Europe and the European Union has dismissed Turkey, promised them, lied to them, given them the middle finger. So they've shunned Turkey, and Turkey is angry about that. But if they say, bring Turkey into BRICS, Saudi Arabia and Iran have mended their ways, in a sense, by China's ability. China could step in and help with this. If you had Turkey in BRICS, and BRICS then go to Gaza and plant a flag, plant a embassy, plant a BRICS consortium, plant a BRICS common market, plant a BRICS organization, structure, diplomatic post for all of the nations, not just Russia, not just China, not just Iran, not just South Africa, but for all of the nations. It's like a miniature United Nations. And if BRICS went and planted that in Gaza, it would be a recognition of the Palestinian state that could be expanded, of course, but at least on that portion, it's recognizing Palestine. It's a multinational group that are all in agreement that are going to Gaza for the purposes of economic life, economic thriving, flourishing. It's not military. They're not smuggling weapons. They're not doing anything bad or hurtful to anyone. They are bringing food and medicine and clothing and opportunities and education, a BRICS university, if you will. They need to move into Gaza with a multinational presence to shield them from the Israeli bombardment. And it is outside of America. It's outside of the United Nations. It's outside of the Security Council. It is the new mechanism that if that happened, you would have Turkey, of course, would be a part of it, and they've got a very strong military. Iran couldn't be blamed of having an agenda or doing something secret. Neither could Russia, neither could China, South Africa, Russia, all the countries that are part of BRICS going to Gaza would say this is where the BRICS nations are investing in the people of Gaza. And I think it would be the beginning of the economic diplomatic pushback against Israel and the West that the world would be supportive of. India, China, Pakistan, all of the nations that are a part of BRICS, they would have to support that. And I think it would be a turning point. But Hamid, I'll put it to you to see what you think that would be, how that might have an effect, or is it something that you don't think is would be realistic? You go ahead, tell me.
I believe that's an intelligent idea. Coming back to various conversation of Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs with Brazilian Foreign Affairs, and we know the position of South African politicians for years after, the freedom from the apartheid system was a very pro-Palestinian position. And so even coming back to Russia, once again, after that taking position of Israeli on the side of Westerns in Ukrainian crisis, Israel, coming back to the post 7th October, because I believe, and not me, but many Israeli actually believe, Israeli historians and academic, that Israel history has been divided on before and after 7th October of 2023. And after that, Israel have been waiting kind of support from Russians, but they didn't get it. because Russian actually and Ukrainian crisis have been waiting a kind of another reaction of Israeli, but Israelis have been playing in the same plane that Westerns and Europeans have, and America and Ukraine have been somehow has been sacrificed actually by the US for NATO actually aims at the price of Europeans. But yeah, I when I look at them, I mean one by one, I mean Brazil, I mean Russia, South Africa, Iran, Turkey. So we know that I mean Recep Tayyip Erdogan has himself personally a kind of very pro-Palestinian tendencies, while he believes on that issue of two-state solution. Coming back to two-state solution, many people in the West and those sympathizer to Israel, those I mean Jewish, even some of them Zionist people, they are saying two-state solution is a kind of now in 2023 a kind of dead solution. And why? Because what the Zionist regime and Likud and all these people around Netanyahu were doing since 20 years, it's actually just a kind of dead end. It's a kind of a direction leading us to nowhere. And you know, Scott, that's as a kind of nutrition that you will eat, the kind of food you will eat, but in that food, the time is over, and that's very cold. So that's the situation of two-state solution. Once again, that's not what I am saying. That's what many American and European who have been very actually sympathetic, who have been very likely to very kind toward Israel. They are saying that, okay, even not the anti-Israeli activists or movements. So, but I strongly believe what you have been saying is a kind of intelligent idea. And even if it did not yet happen in a kind of political framework, but I believe in various conversations between head of states, and even we had that very unique, 40 minutes phone conversation between Iranian president and Mohammed bin Salman, MBS in Saudi Arabia on second day of, if I remember correctly, of Israeli invasion of Gaza. So I strongly believe that's a kind of, with the help of public opinion, government, even, those government who wanted to normalize their ties with Israel, now they see, because in Qatar soccer World Cup, football World Cup, they have seen that the Palestinian people are supported by the vast majority of Arab people. A very unique, representation was by Morocco national team, and they have seen all the investment they have done for normalization of ties with Israel will not be accepted and tolerated by the people. So I want to give, I think that's a kind of rational idea what we have been talking about it, and we are going in that way, Scott. We are going in the direction that in coming years, UN will have no power. All these international communities. So I'm not a kind of, dreamer, but I am saying, based on the realities on the ground, WTO, World Health Organization, all these international institutions founded by American and by United States government, actually, in upcoming 10, 20 years, we'll have no more the same power that they had at the beginning and even today. And the other new regional and trans-regional structure and political entourage are going to be created. And the one who are intelligent enough understood that Alexander Dugin theory on multipolar world is working right now. Coming back to that deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and the deal broker was China. So remember, Chinese people, if they would like to to act politically, they take too much time. They're very patient. They took, what happened for Ukraine? I mean, maybe more than that happened for Taiwan, but the Chinese are too patient.
Yes.
Okay, and Americans wanted to make a kind of track in order for Chinese to be misguided. But the issue is, so after years and years of working on economy, Chinese, for the first time in the contemporary political history, uh, actually were the deal broker between Iran and Saudi Arabia, two great power in Middle East. And so we have to understand the whole, I mean, the global equation, not only Middle East, coming back to Latin America, coming back to Africa, coming back to, I mean, in Africa, we have Nigeria, Angola.
Yeah.
And so once again, we are saying that in 21st century, and the African natural resources will help the whole world. So I strongly believe on what you are saying, even once again, if I mean not in the same frame that you have been saying, but the idea is the same.
Yes.
I mean, the essence is the same, and it will happen undoubtedly.
Yeah. And see, the other thing about that is the urgency is that all of these nations up until this point have done nothing but talk. They have been doing nothing but uttering speeches and flatulent, commentary at the stage of the United Nations, elsewhere on their podiums and their platforms. They've just talked and chatted. They haven't done anything. And that is weakness and cowardice and stupidity. So we're coming to say, this is strength, this is boldness and courage and intelligence. Do you want to be part of boldness and courage and intelligence and strength that invests into the Palestinian people and helps them and also strengthens the BRICS organization? Or are you on the side of do nothing and talk and being held down and suppressed and enslaved by the Jewish American UN endless nonsense? This is the time to shift to action. And that, if they don't, then that gives them a quality of shame. And shame is very important in moving people, in manipulating and directing and provoking people to action. Shame is extraordinarily powerful, and it's not opinion. It's not being mean. It is saying, here are the facts. You have done nothing but talk for 20 years about Palestine. Now is the time to act. Do you choose to act and be a hero and bold, or do you choose not to act? And there's no room for political nonsense or being on the middle of the fence. You either invest and be part of the BRICS nations that go to Gaza and plant a flag in a pile of rubble and say, this is the future BRICS embassy, which we will have public markets and university, whatever. This is the Palestinian state, or not. And I think we're at that level. Donald Trump, incidentally, when he planted a flag in the Jerusalem as the Israeli embassy, which I disagreed with, he could have set up an embassy in Gaza and said, we are here to recognize the Palestinians. He didn't do that. So I think that was a failure. And we need to have that transition to action and shaming people that refuse to act, because now we're at a time unlike any other in history where little boys and little girls are being smashed and killed and genocided by the Israelis using American bombs and bullets and American soldiers and ships. And I think it's absolutely shameful. But I'll hand it back to you. You were going to say something.
Yeah, it was a very brief comment. I don't remember it, but once again, I believe that on the power of public opinion, I believe in the power of independent investigative journalists. I believe the whole world still has a very courageous reporters who are actually ready to die in order to say the truth. And I believe on the same side, there is a duty and responsibility for American and European journalists to say the truth. And we know that the truth is not what the mainstream media are saying. And nowadays, much more people are following the social media and unfollowing the mainstream media and traditional television, cable channels, and so on. So in such a word, I strongly believe on the role of these three categories. I mean, normal people, ordinary people, public opinion, the media, and political decision makers. And so once again, I believe that, uh, I mean, if you will like, when that deal happened between Iran and Saudi Arabia, so even Saudian have actually understood that they need a kind of calm uh, Middle East, and Chinese even, and even the Russians, they understood after ISIS and all these, I mean, war on terror, actually invasion, they need a kind of more tranquil and tranquilized region. And then they started a kind of conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And it was somehow directed by the Israeli embassy in Baku, in Azerbaijan. So I strongly believe the necessity of the timeline of Israel is in the middle of crisis. And, if there is no crisis in the Middle East, if we have a peaceful region, that's bad news for Israel, because that's the nature of Israel. That's what its essence is based on, a very permanent and absolute existence of crisis, of chaos. And without that, they could not survive. So I strongly believe on what you have been saying, and I agree with you 110%.
Well, hopefully we can make some progress and have conversations with foreign ministers and people on the high up, because I think we need to transition into the economic and diplomatic fronts as well as the kinetic military. And I'd say the military, we want to hold back on that as much as possible, because we don't want a regional war. We don't want Turkey, Iran, and America fighting.
Scott, if you could just put that idea on the paper on one page, is not more than that.
Yep.
That idea of having a kind of diplomatic front, I can hand it over to the cultural advisor of Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I think, I mean, they are doing something. According to what I know, I mean, they are doing various conversations with various ministers of foreign affairs across the globe. You have seen, I mean, Minister Amir Abdullahian traveled to Turkey. I mean, and they announced that Iranian president will travel to Turkey, and so he, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, actually had a trip in UN, and so talking with various people, with various decision making. Political actually infrastructure. So I ask you humbly to put that on the paper, and not more of one page, so we can translate it and hand it over to the people. And so while you have that experience as well, so it could actually make them actually give them an idea.
Yeah, I will. I'll be happy to do that. Ahmed, we're coming up to running out of time. It's been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we've had it. We'll have to have it again, because I think your wisdom is certainly refreshing and necessary for the American people and our Western audiences to both understand the geopolitical reality of what we're facing in the Middle East and elsewhere around the world. And I think it helps them see a better future. and a future where we have, again, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And I think your voice is one of peace and love, as mine is as well. So it's always an honor to be with you. Let me hand it to you and give us your closing thoughts and any ways people can follow you, your website or your shows. Go ahead and give us your closing thoughts.
Yeah, Scott, people, I mean, like labels. I mean, I know you are labeled in US as extremist, as we are in Iran, you know, radicalist, extremist, fanatic.
Yeah.
But when we sit down with some of these radicalist, extremist, fanatic people, and we just drink a tea together and we talk together, I see these are, I mean, one of the most peaceful people on the earth, but they just look at the realities. I, as a Middle Eastern, as an Iranian, I am dying. I'm dying to see a peaceful region. I'm dying to see, everything good and beautiful and, wonderfully done by the people loving each other, living with each other. But when we look at the realities on the ground, that's not what is happening.
Mhm.
And then, so when you close, I mean the air and the sea and the land, and you make a prison to a people. So, and when they have no other choice,
Yes.
that's the actual interpretation of late Professor Edward Said
Mhm.
on Palestinian resistance. He
Yes.
was explaining why a Palestinian actually has been forced, for example, to do a kind of suicidal attack to Israelis, because all pressure on him. Just imagine every single day you, American citizen, going to work, coming back home, and there is a checkpoint. Every single day you are humiliated. You have that kind of up to down look from Israeli to Palestinian Arab, and then they don't let you go to work, and they are bothering you every single day. So on your identity, it will be something that I will take revenge. And that teenage Palestinian of 10 years old, of 12 years old in 2005,
Yes.
in 2023 is a young man of 23, 25 years old, and he will not understand the degree of humiliation and discrimination in the society he was living, while it has been said that we took all the land of you Palestinian people and we left that Gaza Strip for you. But even within that strip, they don't let you be tranquil and just have a normal life. What every single person on the earth would like to. They would like to have a normal, minimum, basic life. And the issue is, coming back to that 2006 war between Lebanon's Hezbollah and Israel. Some of these, I mean, pro-Israeli actually TV channel in Lebanon, they went to the southern actually border, and they were interviewing people in order to find one person who say, I mean, God curse Hezbollah, they destroyed our lives. But they found none of these cases.
Right.
The same thing in Gaza. If you can just show me, Scott, one interview of one citizen, one Palestinian citizen in Gaza who is saying, I disagree with Hamas, I don't want to resist. Every one of them, they are resisting, and they are showing and saying and approving that. So it shows that for every single nation, and we are talking about Palestine as a nation,
Yes.
with a history, with a culture, for every single nation, when it arrived to the actually neck, when they have no more solution, they will continue to resist to liberate their idea, We are not talking about geography. We are not talking about the land only, but we are talking about the idea. We are talking about the humanity. We are talking about the whole essence of humankind. On that note, I thank you so much, Dr. Scott Bennett, for your wonderful show. And I wish we can have actually handle a conference, who knows, maybe one day in Gaza, if that's not bombed.
Yes. Well, I would be honored and happy and always supportive to be there and to speak anywhere. And I think it's only a matter of time before a flotilla of rescue ships deliver food and medicine. An airlift is similar to the Marshall Plan, delivers food and medicine and the necessities of the Palestinian people. I think it's only a matter of time before tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people start descending on Gaza from every corner of the Arab Islamic world to show support and peace. And I pray for that. I pray for God to bring people to the Palestinian people's aid and to turn back the evil and the madness that's been unleashed by the Israelis. And I pray that
Amen.
the Israelis also have a peaceful renaissance, and they cast out from them these wicked, warmongering, savage demoniacs like Netanyahu and many in the Likud party. There needs to be a renaissance and renewal and a new beginning there. And like you said earlier, where Arab, Christian, Jew, all have equal rights, as was the original vision, if you will, from the United Nations in 1949, although it was clumsily done. But I think it needs to finally be repaired in a way that is going to bring peace and tranquility to all. And I do believe the BRICS nations are a key instrument that can be the syringe, if you will, that injects a new therapeutic healing medicine of economic prosperity into that region, into that.
And remember, Israel is the first responsible of the rise of anti-Semitism in Western Europe, in North America, because people living with the Jewish people, they had no problem. And once they see what is going on in Gaza, slaughtering innocent people, kids and children, they will just promote the ideas against Jewish people, against Jewish community in Europe. And once again, I come back to the idea that unfortunately some of these people can only survive in the middle of crisis and chaos.
Yes.
And they would like to create once again a kind of Holocaust and saying we have been victim and victimization process and so on. But we have to be clever enough. I mean, the history is repeating itself. We have a short memory, but we have to study the contemporary history of our lives in order to save our children, in order to save our upcoming generations.
Yes. And pray without ceasing. Remember, God says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I shall repay. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, nor entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for those that love him. And I think now is the time to pray for God to show his miraculous hand. And I think if my people will pray, I will heal their land, he says. So let us always be petitioning him and showing peace and love and kindness to each other. So Hamid, it is wonderful to have you on. We will have you on again. God bless you. May God bless your family and the great people of Iran. May God bless them and give them peace and safety. And let us renew our relationship as nations moving forward. So we ask this in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Scott. I strongly believe on what Dr. Colin Rowley called a citizen diplomacy when we have been doing an interview with him, former FBI agent and 9/11 truther. So I strongly believe on the power of public diplomacy and citizen diplomacy. So official diplomacy is good as well, but I am not a man of, State Department, Minister of Foreign Affairs. I am a man of public diplomacy, citizen diplomacy, and I strongly believe on what you are doing. And God bless you, God bless your family, friends, and God bless American people in American land.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. God bless you.
One man come in the name of love. One man come and go. One man come here to justify. One man to overthrow. In the name of love. One man in the name of love.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Scott Bennett, host of Great Awakenings on globalfreedomtv.com. Just wanted to take a few seconds and let you know we are continuing to offer the Indian Black Salve. If you haven't got it yet, go to destroy-cancer.com and you can order it there. It is a miraculous healer of cancer. That's my testimony. We don't give medical advice, but I can tell you with authority that I put it on skin cancer on my back for 4 days, and 15 days later, it scabbed and fell off. There is photographs up there, a video up there, you will see with your own eyes. So if you have any kind of cancer, skin cancer, brain cancer, breast cancer, leukemia, bone cancer, get the Indian Black Salve. It will go into your body, destroy the cancer, and you will be cleansed. You will be healed. Remember, behold, I am the Lord who heals. So this will do a wonderful healing of your body. If you have any questions, email us. We're happy to answer what we can. We don't give medical advice, but I believe so passionately about this that we want to get it to everybody who may be suffering from this. And it's also a preventative. So you can take it in capsule form, put it into a little gel capsule with a toothpick or chopstick. Always use wood. And take it once a day for 20 days, every 3 months. It'll clean your body of cancer. It is a wonderful substance, Indian Black Salve. So contact us at destroy-cancer.com. God bless you. We'll see you soon.
Everybody needs a little time away, I heard her say, from each other. Even lovers need a holiday, far away from each other. Oh, now it's hard for me to say I'm sorry. I just want you to stay. After all that we've been through, I will make it up to you. I'll promise to. And after all that's been said and done, you're just a part of me I can't let go. Couldn't stand to be kept away just for the day.
There was a time when I had my head in the sand. Then I found out that power players pass lies for truth and truth for lies, especially in areas of life and health. I used to stay quiet, and now I speak up. I red pill my family, I red pill my friends, and I support redpillliving.com. Red Pill Living has real health products that support longevity, vitality, and detoxification against the deep state attacks on your health. It's redpillliving.com. Wake up, stand up, speak up.